All right, welcome to Rauta. Here we are in Majava Bar, Beaver Bar in Tampere. What a peculiar city in Finnish black metal scene, because some of the most active bands, some of the most prominent bands come from this area. Why? Nobody knows, because Tampere is a relatively big city, but also a kind of a weird place. No offense though. What we have here is obviously Horna, and these two fine gentlemen, vocalist, the main songwriter, guitarist, and one of many places. Guys, there are probably some weird black metal people who don't know who you are. How would you introduce yourself to the camera and the audience?
Weird question. I haven't been ever good in marketing myself, even though I've been doing marketing as my profession for many years, but I've always found it difficult to sell myself somehow.
Now you don't have to say. Just what did you do, in your opinion, besides vocalist in Horna?
Well, I'm just living my own life, not giving a shit about my surroundings.
What about you, sir? How would you describe your role in Horna?
Well, I just basically do everything, and I let the music do the talking pretty much. I don't need to be that recognized for what I'm doing.
All right. Your latest album came out in December 2020, one of the last releases to really blow the minds of people in black metal scene or black metal territory. But how are your feelings now that a little bit time has passed with the album, but you haven't really been able to play due to COVID and all that stuff? Any afterthoughts? What should have been done differently, or anything of that sort?
In my opinion, nothing. I would change nothing on that album. Came out quite perfectly, and it's like the album was ready for a long time, almost one full year. So we had the time to listen to it through and go through if there's any changes we need to do. But nothing was found that should be changed or done differently.
Your album is one of the longest Horna albums out there. I mean, it's over 70 minutes, which is too much for some people, but then again, if the quality is good, why not? But how did you end up with a thing like that compared to normal 40 minutes or so? Care to elaborate?
It just happened by accident. The original idea was to have 8 songs on the album and leave rest for an EP release or whatever, but as soon as we were listening to the whole thing, we noticed that it just flows through. You don't notice how much the time is passing, and everyone thought that we just need to include all of it.
Could your album Kuoleman kirjo be described as killers no fillers, or do you think there are peak moments or low points?
I think it's paced really good, the album. There's like the slower parts and kind of like the breather moments, but they are not in no less, the songs are all like top quality in our books. And it's like the rhythm of the songs and the general feeling of the songs gives the pace to that album. And in my sense, it's almost like a 2-part album, which is like cut in the half in the middle, and it sets a little bit different mood for the rest of the album after the Kärsimysten Cathedral. So it's divided in my books. That's my opinion. It's not meant to be like that, but it like naturally flows in that sense in my own mind.
You also have quite a bit of clean vocals this time. I mean, more than your regular Horna album. How did you end up with this kind of decision?
It was just when I got the songs as a demo versions and got the lyrics from Shatraug, I started to listen, just recreating the songs in my mind, and there was we didn't discuss about it. It just came naturally that way. I wouldn't do it in any other way. There wasn't, for example, Haudattujen tähtien yönä, when I first heard the guitar parts and how it was like composed the song, it straightly like reminded me of White Aura, the old song, and definitely it was in my mind built the same way with the clean vocal start, and so it was very natural how it came.
What about the lyrics and the kind of visual side of the album? How much, or was there any difference compared to previous ones?
Well, you can talk about the lyrics.
Well, the main difference is that I think it's the first time we have an album that all the lyrics are connected to each other.
So it's kind of a concept in a way.
Oh, it's just as the album title says, it's the whole spectrum of death. So every song is somehow connected to it, with some little exceptions here and there, but they're still all based on the kind of reverence to death and everything connected to it.
Why is death so important? I mean, obviously we all die and all that stuff, but why it fascinates you exceptionally well, or a lot?
We could say that the only thing certain is that everything dies. Okay.
Yeah, and it's for me it's like well, I haven't had that many near-death experiences, but the ones I've had, it's kind of like the memory of those moments. It's very profound and it sticks to your mind. It is something that you really can't describe in like making a picture out of it. Of course, you can try to like paint a picture or put it into the music, but it's still, the image is only in your head. It is nothing that you could like fully describe or transfer to someone other's mind, because it's like a full experience that only you can go through.
How about your own aging process? How much it differs? I mean, has it make a difference in creating your music and lyrics, plus also going stage? I mean, of course, now that you have so many years with different bands and you have a hindsight, you can reflect your past with the present. Has that affected how you write lyrics, write music, present yourself on stage?
I'd say there's a lot of going on that's growingly more spiritual than anything else. Like when we were young, everyone was more hateful towards everything possible. But now it seems that
it's more focused.
Yeah, more focused, and there's really no need to be hating everything because you're just wasting your energy towards pointless little things.
Could we say you have a broader sense of understanding things versus the days of youth?
Well, that should be the main basis of growing up, like understanding the things that are moving around you.
What about people? I mean, there's a bunch of people in metal or metalheads who seem to think that listening to metal, making metal is sort of kind of an ageless era of rebellion. Like, you never get old, you're constantly that 20-year-old kid, like, not giving a fuck about rules, not giving a fuck about how the world is. Do you believe that is utter nonsense, or do you think there's a point in that?
My personal opinion on that is like metalheads are the most like, how would I put it, like they are the ones who are like not evolving anywhere, not like understanding the world revolving around them. They are just, stagnant, just like there, and it's like just metal. And I really don't give a shit about that. That's why I don't listen to a lot of metal music outside of black metal. It's like, because it's not evolving anywhere in that sense. It is, and in a certain, I can understand the traditional point of view, but it is like, I want to see that like evolution, I want to see like things moving around and everything.
Considering your own music, Horna especially, is kind of a very traditional second wave in black metal. And a lot of people seem to think that black metal hasn't really been evolving since early 90s. I mean, since especially the Norwegians, but of course other countries as well, started to push, out the kind of a typical second wave black metal. It hasn't really evolved, or has it? What's your take on this so-called third wave of black metal, or modern black metal versus the ones happening in the past?
I don't really think about evolution in black metal at all. The only thing I'm looking for is that if it comes from the heart of the people who made it, and if it is coming through in the music or not. For me, it seems that mostly people are just making music for the sake of music, and they don't transmit any kind of spiritual energy or feel with their music, and sadly that's also the way black metal is nowadays most of the time. I'd say I don't even listen to that many newer bands at all. I keep on checking everything I find interesting, but most of the time it's just disappointing.
Especially Finnish black metal is kind of a big thing, especially nowadays around the world. I mean, Norway probably had the crown in the 90s for a few years, let's be honest about it. But since then, it has kind of totally become kind of a joke, what it used to be.
How many bands of the old Norwegian classics have maintained their level of greatness?
Exactly. And Finnish black metal is being recognized one of the crown jewels, so to say. But what, in your opinion, is the reason for so many Finnish black metal bands, and even talented ones, coming one after another, again and again and again? What's the thing here? I mean, we have plenty of bands which sound a little bit like Horna. They have similarities, but also their own thing. How is this happening, in your opinion? Do you have any idea?
Cannot say a real answer to that. It is, of course, it's a combination, has to be a combination of many things. It is we are a small nation. We are we hear about the demos quite early on the stages when they are, if you just want to hear them out. It is easy to acquire them or hear the people. Mm-hmm. You meet them on early stages on shows and everything, so you get to know what people are about. So the phonies are kicked out in very early stages. So only the true hearts will survive here. I think that's one of the reasons.
Yeah, the Finnish mentality of being stubborn as hell. That's probably what drives bands to do their own thing and keep on doing it.
It's kind of ironic that we're talking about so many older bands which have kind of grown big. I mean, talking about names like, say, Dimmu Borgir, Shatraug, etc. They're the biggest household names, yet the more successful they become, they kind of on decline they are. Pardon if there are any fans, but that's how it is. And then again, this kind of Finnish stubborn mentality, like you said, and being very humble and not really going all about marketing itself, seems to work for the favor of the music. So do you think there is a link or connection between the two? Hey, we just do our own stuff, if somebody doesn't like it, fuck off. Or is this just mere coincidence?
I really know that in this world, honesty doesn't pay, but in a certain way, in this sense, it pays off that you are doing just what you want to do, because it gives the music or art what you are doing. It can be painting, art, or music, what we do. It can give it the general feeling, and that is how I ingest music nowadays. I first pick up mostly the feeling. I don't even on the first run when I play an album, I don't listen to the melodies or anything. It is just I try to inhale what is inside.
To get an atmosphere.
Yeah. So it is being stubborn and following your own goals, which you have set to your art. That pays off at some point if there's something in your art. And it's it doesn't, because music is nowadays, you have all the channels which you can use. You don't need that marketing, special gimmicks, wearing your fucking Santa Claus outfits on the cover of a music magazines and that kind of or doing an endless like flow of interviews and that kind of stuff. It's nothing that it's only a little part of the that can. Of course, an interview can give a little bit more insight of what you are trying. But when you are putting your like full spectrum of your what you know, what you feel into the art, it can really transmit to it.
You both guys, you have other bands as well. So let's go a little bit off-road about this. First, you, Ville. Striges, one of your own other bands, just also came out with an album quite near after, with the Horna album. And we discussed a little bit in private about this, like about coincidentally coming out because it was older material. But what about your other bands? How much you can allocate their energy or ideas? How you differ? Like, okay, this is definitely Horna riff. These lyrics go for this part, etc. How do you sort it all out, so to speak?
Well, lyrically speaking, it's all based on what the band or project is and how I imagine that the whole concept around it should be. But musically, it's just all based on feeling. What I feel belongs to which band and with where, and of course there's lots of similarities between the riffs, but when I feel that something doesn't belong in Horna, for example, then it doesn't go there. And the same thing with many others, even if there are many times songs that technically could have been on any of the bands or projects, but it's just based on how I feel about it.
Does this also mean that Horna is kind of a safer end of the bands? I mean, you have quite a big of catalog, your discography is big, and you must have an idea, okay, this sounds definitely 100% Horna. But what about the riffs that are maybe like 85%? How do they end? Where do they end?
Sometimes they go nowhere. Quite honestly, Horna is the most difficult of my bands to be making songs for. It's the one that I end up discarding most ideas for. Just as the new album, even if it's 13 songs and lots of length, and that's just about half of the songs that I wrote originally ended up being recorded.
So now we will hear fans' tears coming out. We want to hear the rest of it. Where is it coming out?
Yeah, most of the time that's never happening. I keep writing songs all the time. I probably must have 10, 15 albums worth of songs for whatever, even at the moment. But if it doesn't feel like it should go anywhere, it just doesn't.
Alright. What about you, Tuomas? You also have your other ventures. Also in the past, which I want to go after this one, but first about, you have Trollheimsgrot, and you have had other projects as well. How do they go hand in hand with Horna stuff? How you can find time and passion for them?
Easily, it is kind of when I'm creating music or thinking of creating music, I start from a certain kind of like soundscape or mindset, and from there it translates easily. Is this going to be a Slaves Mask, like kind of like synthesized trip hop stuff, or do I do completely keyboard stuff, which I've been lately doing a little bit again, like kind of like more Vangelis style cyberpunk stuff, which the even like kind of aesthetically inspires me a lot to do that, which is a little bit like on the sidelines of Trollheimsgrot, but then again Trollheimsgrot is more like the kind of deteriorated like urban landscape where there's no humans left anymore. And yeah, it's very easy for me to, like when some melody or some idea comes to my mind, it's very easy to place it one of my, which I'm doing. Like for example, Black Death Ritual is like a knife cutting your skin and bleeding for Satan. It's just straight away that where it's going. I don't have to like think that which is going to be this.
So it's a natural process.
Yeah, it's very natural. Like with the like we were already talking about the vocal process of Horna. It is. I'm not making any big when I get the demo versions. I don't do a lot of like pre-arrangements or something. I just go to our rehearsal room to record those vocals. I take the lyrics. There might be not even. I haven't even picked out the songs yet, which lyrics I'm going to use. I just lay them out. I listen through the songs, and they naturally just select themselves to the places. I might have some ideas which I'm going to do, but it's very natural for me.
Now we go a little bit back in time with both of you guys. Continuing with you first. For a long time you were known as the kind of main face for the band Turmion Kätilö, which is very much in the past now for you. But how was the jump from coming this kind of very bizarre, kind of almost kind of absurd techno rock metal combination of music, and then becoming this face of a couple of black metal bands? Like I said, I never market myself, or I don't keep myself as a face of something. It is not my. Turmion Kätilö was a venture for me to just fulfill a certain side of me, kind of the exhibitionist and kind of my fetish with the rubber and everything. And when that phase was off with the other guys of the band, didn't it was changing towards the direction that it wasn't anymore kind of the part of the Turmion Kätilö thing. It was like easy way to me to not continue with that anymore. Were you more or less dragged more into the darkness from the kind of a mainstream sound?
No, because I was at the same time I was doing black metal, and black metal has been the kind of my choice of weapon always, or maybe not even the kind of black metal, but devil worship is in my heart since I was 13. But it was more of a aesthetical venture for me. Of course, I like EBM music and that kind of pumping techno music also. It's I always like electronic sounds a lot, and it was kind of a conjunction of the aesthetical thing and electronic music was drawn, and it was. We never thought that Turmion Kätilö. Of course, the main guys always wanted the band to be big, but it was never that we would guess how big it came.
All right. What about you, Ville? When did you decide that you need other bands besides Horna? Horna has been already going for almost 30 years, but you have constantly coming up with new projects, some more or less dead, but then kind of getting resurrected, if you will. So when did you figure out, okay, Horna is not enough for me to play for Satan? How come you started to go in different directions?
Somewhere around 20 years ago, when there just started to be far too much material to be released only as Horna, and when it became obvious that not the whole lineup could actually fulfill the idea to be doing too much material all the time, I just felt that I needed to express the best ideas that I had, even if it wasn't for Horna only.
All right. Now we have pretty much covered your musical ventures and all that stuff. But people want to know, what is that Satan thing, where it is coming to you, and how it differs between you guys? Let's start with you. How could you describe Satan to you as a person? What it means, how it reflects upon your life? It's a very easy question.
Well, he's the driving energy behind everything. I don't see Satan as any kind of physical being or anything. He's just basically a manifestation of all the dark energies abound him. The main thing is, for me, is to channel that energy forward.
What about you then, Tuomas? What is the devil, what is the Satan, the great adversary to you?
No, of course it started when I was early teenager, I found that the images or the painted or drawn figures of Satan somewhat appealing, and of course the popular culture offered some references to the devil. And well, yeah, I found it through music in somewhat kind of the way of. But nowadays, even if you took the black metal away from me, I would still walk the same path as spirituality. And nowadays, I'm only a traveler here still. I don't have any answers for that what is Satan, but it like feels. I see it when we are traveling the world, I try to see the references to that kind of same kind of idea of Satan or opposer or anything in every culture what we are traveling in.
Christianity tries to paint the world in a very, black and white. You have the good Christ and God and blah, blah, blah. And then you have Satan, which is supposed to reflect everything evil here. How do you answer to this point to paint idea of Satan? Is it just about being evil and dark, or is there some goodness or maybe some wisdom or other ideas with the concept?
Well, in a certain way, it's a far-fetched, and yes, I have to point it out that I know that Kali in any way is not a devilish figure in a certain way. It is, but then again, like if we think of what is our heritage coming from a Christian country, it is kind of I find that in my own book, the devil or Satan is the one who rips the veil of like between the kind of reality and the dream and makes you see the true learning and like living the life.
If there was one, you can say more than one, but some examples, you mentioned popular culture and Satan being very much part of it, which we, I guess, all know with books, movies, games, etc. Are there some examples, like there might be some new Horna fan like, okay, I need to write it down. What pieces of art they should check out if they want to see your understanding of Satan in pieces of art or entertainment? Are there some examples like you need to check out this to understand us? Like, are there like some examples of that?
Kind of hard because we are talking about spirituality, and in my books, like because I'm against like every kind, even like I never find any answers or worth to follow like in these like organized currents in the context of Satanism and that, because every spirituality should be born in your own, like how you live your life, how you like how you see things, how you handle things here, and it should be always like born from an individual, and you should cherish it as your own spiritual thing. So it is like you can pick and point. There's a lot of references, but I think because Horna had some references to the old Tolkien stuff, pretty obvious, and I think Sauron was a good, in a certain way, a good description of the all-seeing eye. And
well, do you have any ideas which pieces of art, like movie, a book, or any other form of art or entertainment you should check out to understand, to get your eyes open, so to speak?
In short, I would just say that check everything that speaks out to you. That's what I've been doing, and I have no other advice or anything to say about it.
All right. Now that you mentioned Tolkien, it is a great excuse for me to go really back in time. I remember late 90s when probably you and me met the first time in Helsinki, some gig or whatever, and I remember asking you this tricky question, and I'm coming back. I don't have this kind of a good memory, but this I remember. I asked you about Örtti Vuorilta songs, which is one of the earliest, very catchy Horna songs, and I was back then really like wondering like what this Örtti thing, orc, if you will, Tolkien style, has to do with kill the Christians, like you say the chorus parts. How did you fit Tolkien and fantasy literature together with the idea of killing the Christians?
Right now, I'd just say that young minds work in mysterious ways.
That's a good answer.
It can't really be explained that well, but back then all kinds of interests just came together and can't even remember what I've been thinking back then. But somehow it must have seemed fitting at the time.
And it's not that even like any far-fetched, because it's, in a certain way it seems very universal in black metal context. For example, take out Marduk's Heaven Shall Burn When We Are Gathered cover art. It is orcs and it's not like kind of demonic, which we used to see in like woodcut art. But they are fucking orcs with the Marduk shields on the cover.
Which brings me to one of the very last questions before we go, some fan-made questions. Tolkien especially has been a big inspiration for a lot of bands. I mean, you really don't have to be a kind of a genius to figure out that you have bands like Gorgoroth, you have bands like Isengard, you have bands like Azaghal, and well, lots of Tolkien references all the way through the whole black metal thing. And we all know pretty much, especially if you dig a little bit deeper in the Finnish black metal scene, that quite a big bunch, me included, and a certain kind of you to a certain extent as well, not to mention other names, have kind of a bit of a geek or nerdic history. I mean, a lot of us have been playing the role-playing games, have read books, and all that kind of stuff, which is related more or less so-called geek culture. Do you think there is some kind of a special thing with, you know, fantasy and works of imagination and black metal, because they're so often connected?
In a certain way, of course, talking about spirituality, some might see it as a fantasy spirituality, which it basically isn't. But it is for some. If you say that I have this kind of beliefs, they just keep it as true fantasy of your mind. And of course, during like on your teenager, all these fantasy worlds are interesting. And it is like they give you an option of a like get away from the normal teenager problems which you might have had during that time. And you were following Conan or something. Or Tolkien, which just tells about the writer stuff that he really made an impact. Of course, because it was like kind of translating the real world into a fantasy world with certain kind of elements. You could talk that was here racist because orcs were like this and this color and that kind of everything. What is always like baffles me that trying to like translate a fantasy world to a real world.
Exactly.
But it's, yeah, mostly it was like, because, for example, talking about the Finnish bands, everybody of the Finnish like bands started when they were teenagers. So it was like kind of, it had to be to do with the escapism of the like teenager years to a certain point. And from that it developed to something more mature.
Now, we've discussed this, especially with you, Thomas, the previous interview a few years ago. You were one of the first I did for the channel at Steelfest 2017, I think. And back then, I asked you the very same question, basically, which I want to do now, because I want to make this clear to some douchebags and idiots out there, the one with now every brains. Horna has been accused for some political things. We know that Horna is not a political band, but how do you want to tell the audience Horna is not a political band, because people have a hard time understanding this?
Well, in this time of the world, it's no point talking to douchebags. It is, people have made their mind, and that's their, I wouldn't say right, but there's no turning heads at this time of we are living. Well, read the lyrics, there is nothing political about it. It's like devil worship and what we like. That's our spiritualism. What is it in? Wouldn't ever mix politics with my music, which I'm doing. I fucking like, I never even voted because I don't give a shit about this.
Like-minded. What about you, Ville? Do you have anything to add to this?
Not much, except that down to the core, everything is just all human. And the main thing that humanity has been doing for centuries is trying to avoid the natural order in every possible way. And as such, politics have nothing to do with the whole thing because it's all a human invention anyway.
All right. Now, one last question before we go to the audience and questions. I'm gonna do half here and half with the Stargeist interview, which I'm gonna do right after this one. But how is the world gonna be for Horna after the year of the pandemic, the year of the COVID-19? Because it was a very peculiar year, and now in 2021, what's gonna happen now?
I wouldn't say peculiar. Basically, hasn't changed my life in any way.
Hermit?
I'm not a hermit.
Yeah, just joking. I know, because I mean, it's the same for me, really, but...
Really hasn't had. Basically, only thing I've been missing out is like seeing gigs, going to gigs, playing live music, but that's the only part.
So nothing's gonna really change in 2021?
I don't think so.
Because we're gonna watch this in 10 years and we're gonna make these guys like, hey, remember what he said? Or about, okay, I have some random questions here. Some will make sense, some won't. I'm trying to figure out, I'm not gonna ask the question which I mentioned you in the beginning before doing this one, but there is a couple of questions which I guess in a way make sense. Like obviously we went through some of these questions, like how it is different to work with different band. But there's one interesting question related to you, Thomas. What's up with Spellgoth being part of Peste Noir? He has left band? That's the question.
I don't know what my status have ever been with that band. I just played the synth.
Exactly.
On that album. We never. Well, and what do you want to know? You can ask it from Fami.
All right. And what else? What else? There were a couple of questions. I guess I lost it here because quite a few questions came out. Some people were asking about your best experience in South America. We all know that South America as a whole is a bunch of fanatic people, very dedicated, yet not maybe necessarily spending so much money on merchandise and all that stuff. Do you have any particular experience you would like to mention about playing gigs or touring in South America?
Well, I have a lot of good memories about the food in South America. Amazing stuff.
What would be your favorite? If there is only one you can choose.
I can choose only one because I'm kind of like... I love my food and it's like so many good. Last time we were in South America we ate some guinea pig, which was very good. We had some pupusas. And then we, of course, in Argentina, we had a very, very, very good...
You're making him hungry.
Very, very good meat plates there. Also in Mexico, just the street kitchens are like killer. Because you cannot get good Mexican food here in Finland.
All right, I'll take your word for that. There was a question about Ääni ja Yössä. You made an album which dealt with the Black Death. Are you looking forward to seeing a concept album based on the Kung Flu being released, or perhaps tackle such a task for yourself? Is there going to be a co-wide Horna album?
Not really, no. I don't see this particularly inspiring thing. Quite the contrary.
It's not killing enough people.
I was figuring out the same. It's way too boring and epidemic. Now there's one interesting question which isn't related so much to metal as such, but it's kind of related to black metal. This is from Sabine, I guess from the United States of America, who's asking, what do you think about rappers to use PC terminology, and that doesn't really relate to personal computer, but political correctness, you figure it out. Appropriating black metal fonts and logos to sell the merch. So rappers, hip hop people stealing black metal fonts, logos, things. Does it concern you at all? Do you care?
No.
Not at all, no. Everyone's free to express themselves how they feel. That's how I see it. They're the ones who's gonna bear the consequences and everything else.
If that's like if a rapper like somehow identifies his art or her art into that, it should be represented with the black metal style logo. But go for it. But it's like, what the fuck? If there's no meaning behind it, it's just making a phony out of themselves.
All right, one last question. This is actually with the same person, Sabine from Los Angeles, saying like, how has this PC culture recently influenced metal in your opinion? Do you worry about being cancelled or that the shows will be cancelled like how they were in the Tag in the United States? This is because of related to these black metal gigs being cancelled like because of Antifa and whatever. Do you think things like that will happen in the future as well?
Of course they will happen. It's like there's this boneheaded people everywhere, but it's like it doesn't, at least I'm talking on personal level, it doesn't affect on my doings in any way. It's mostly like the gig organizers and managers like headache, that how they can like take this band and that band to the like when they are putting up a festival or something. And it's like said in the start of this interview that we just do what we feel in our heart and we go with that. I don't give any value to the like kind of people outside of my own circle. They can fuck themselves and hopefully die of COVID.
All right, the last question. What happens in the next couple of years with Horna? Gigs are really a question mark, so will that speed up doing new material or will you just let it out?
Everything is possible. I haven't yet presented any idea to record something new, but I know already that I probably have at least one album waiting just to be recorded.
All right. What about you, Thomas? Do you have any special plans with or without Horna?
Yeah, just continuing making music. There's a lot of like brewing. There's a lot of unfinished stuff, just waiting for some finishing touches. Like new Black Death Ritual stuff coming out and some new synthesizer music coming out also and that kind of stuff. New SG7 demo on the making. Because now we have a lot of more time in our hands basically. Well, I have the same time that I've always had, but it's in a kind of way that you don't hang out anymore with your friends like outside. You keep in contact in other means. So there's a lot of more time like on your hands to play around with your instruments, that kind of stuff.
All right, thank you guys. So in order to keep up what these guys are doing, obviously tag for their social media pages, check out the news and in general try to keep yourself updated with the things. Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you to all the patrons there for supporting you make this interview possible. So stay tuned for more stuff coming your way and check out Kuoleman Kirjo. What a good album to start your year with, in case you missed in December, that is. Take care. Bye bye.
Nonni. Kauanko sinä meni?